Have you ever felt like life just stopped? As if the weight of the days was so heavy that even breathing became an effort? There are moments when pain seems to swallow everything. The sounds, the colors, the desires. That's exactly how Sophia felt. She believed her life had come to an end. But unbeknownst to her, it was about to begin again. In recent months, she had lost herself. The laughter that once echoed through her home was replaced by a dense, almost suffocating silence. Every morning was a battle against an invisible enemy, her own mind. And perhaps you understand what that means. Waking up and finding no reason to get up, looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back. Extreme depression has that power. It blots out the colors of the world and makes you believe there's no way out. But there's something few people talk about. The rebirth that can emerge from the ashes. Because no matter how dark the tunnel seems, there is a glimmer of light. And that's what this story will show you. Stay with me until the end, because what you discover now may surprise you. Sophia was no different from so many of us. She had dreams, plans, friends, and believed she knew what happiness was. Until suddenly, everything fell apart. Sometimes, the collapse doesn't come with a scream. It comes in silence. It comes in small daily withdrawals. The coffee she stopped making, the messages she stopped responding to, the places she never wanted to return to. It was as if something inside her had slowly faded, and the whole world just kept spinning without her. The scariest thing is that on the outside, everything seemed normal. Sophia still smiled in some photos, still said everything's fine when asked. But inside, a storm was brewing, a mixture of guilt, fear, and an inexplicable emptiness. This is how extreme depression so often works, silent, discreet, yet devastating. And often, those suffering don't even know how to ask for help. Have you ever experienced this? That feeling of being surrounded by people and yet feeling completely alone? Sophia felt exactly that, every single day. Time seemed to drag, and each thought became a shadow darker than the last. Her mind screamed for help, but her voice wouldn't come out. And as the world continued on outside her window, she sank deeper and deeper into her own abyss. But here's the point where everything begins to change. The moment when pain transforms into something new. Because deep down, even when all seems lost, something inside us still insists on living. Sometimes it's just a whisper. Other times, it's a glimmer of hope. And it was in that moment, amidst the chaos, that Sophia heard that whisper. Maybe you can relate to this. That moment when, even broken, you realize there's still something inside you that hasn't given up. A nearly invisible thread that holds you to life, even when all you want to do is let go. It was this thread that Sophia began to hold on to. What happened next wasn't magical, and it wasn't quick, but it was real. A journey of pain, courage, and transformation. A path few have the strength to tread, but one that can change everything when you decide to take that first step. And it is exactly there, at this turning point, between the end and the beginning, that Sophia's true story begins. Sophia was an ordinary woman. She worked, dreamed, made plans, and believed she understood what happiness was. But the truth is, behind the smiles in the photos and the automatic responses of everyday life, there was a silent loneliness growing inside her. Nothing happened suddenly. The decline came in small, almost invisible doses. One day she simply stopped feeling like going out. The next, she started avoiding conversations until she realized she no longer recognized herself. The life that once seemed full of meaning was now an empty stage, where things happened, but nothing truly touched her. It's curious how sometimes the world keeps spinning while inside us. Everything stops. Sophia found herself trapped right there, between who she was and who she was pretending to be. She maintained the appearance of someone who was okay, but her mind was in constant conflict. It's easy to talk about strength when we are standing tall. It is much harder to understand what happens when that strength simply disappears. Depression didn't arrive screaming, it arrived whispering. And it was precisely this silence that consumed her from within. Now I want to delve even deeper into this. Because behind all pain lies a hidden truth that almost no one talks about, the moment you realize you've lost control. Sophia felt this every day, the lack of purpose, the fear of disappointment, the burden of appearing strong all the time. She tried to convince herself it was just a phase, but deep down, she knew it was something bigger. And that's where transformation begins. When the mind starts to question its own existence, making room for a new awareness. This is the hardest part of the journey, facing your own reflection without looking away. Sophia began to see behind the curtains of her own soul, understanding that it wasn't weakness to feel, that it wasn't wrong to break down. Each tear was a cry for help she didn't know how to express. And perhaps that's what impacts us most, realizing that behind the appearances, there's a human being just trying to survive the inner chaos. If this is resonating, comment below. That makes sense to me. Little by little, Sophia began to tire of everything. It wasn't a physical exhaustion, the kind that a good night's sleep can cure. It was a soul weariness, a feeling of always trying to keep up with a life that no longer made sense. She woke every day with the same question echoing in her mind. Why go on? And the silence that followed was what hurt the most. The messages from friends stopped coming, conversations became shorter, and that once present sparkle in her eyes began to fade. It was as if she was there, but part of her had already left without warning. The days began to repeat themselves, all the same, colorless and purposeless. What once brought pleasure, a song, a book, a hot coffee, now seemed like just another obligation. She forced herself to smile, to go out, to feign normalcy, but inside, the emptiness just grew. And the scariest thing was that no one seemed to notice. The world chugged along at its usual pace, while inside her, everything crumbled silently. This is the hidden truth about emotional suffering. It's rarely visible. Sometimes the loudest scream comes disguised as calm. The beginning of the fall doesn't happen all at once. It comes in small, seemingly harmless decisions, failing to take care of yourself, postponing conversations, avoiding people, hiding your feelings. Each choice, each omission, builds a wall between who you were and who you're becoming. Sophia didn't realize it, but she was drifting away from herself. And when that happens, the mind begins to lose its sense of belonging. It's like being in your own body, but feeling like it's no longer yours. The emotional exhaustion became constant. She watched time pass, but she no longer knew where she wanted to go. And that's where so many people get lost, when the fear of disappointment mixes with the shame of admitting they are not okay. Sophia wanted to scream, but she didn't know to whom. And it was in that silence that the pain began to take shape, slow, invisible, and devastating. If you feel this, write in the comments. I'm on this journey too. There came a time when Sophia simply stopped. She had no strength left, no will. Mornings felt like endless nights, and the simple act of opening her eyes became a burden. She felt trapped in an endless cycle, where every attempt at improvement seemed to fail before it even began. It was like living inside a hole with no way out, where hope no longer made sense. Time lost its shape. Hours, days, and weeks blended into a single gray void. And the cruelest part was realizing that no one around her understood the sheer magnitude of what was happening inside. Sophia began to realize that however small, there was still life within her. A breath, a spark that however weak refused to die, too. Every small gesture, getting out of bed, opening the window, looking at the sky, became a form of resistance. And perhaps you understand this. When all seems lost, it is in these small steps that rebirth begins. She didn't know it yet, but that silent movement would be the start of a new story. A story made of falls, attempts, and rediscoveries. Because being reborn isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning to walk with it. And that's precisely what makes every journey unique, every pain charged with meaning. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what's touched you most so far. It could be a memory, a phase you've overcome, or something you're still trying to understand. Sometimes, just putting our feelings into words is the first step toward healing. And it might even help someone reading this realize they're not alone. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people. When you like this video, YouTube understands the value of this message and shares it with others who might need to hear it today. And if you subscribe to the channel, you can continue following real stories of overcoming rebirth and transformation. Because the idea here is to form a community of people who are rebuilding themselves, each in their own time, but all with the same purpose, not to give up. What Sophia was about to discover is that no matter how deep the abyss, there is always a way back. And sometimes it begins precisely when you decide to no longer be silent. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video. Mental pain is a kind of suffering that leaves no visible marks, but corrodes everything inside. Sophia no longer cried. Her tears had been replaced by a profound absence, an emotional numbness. Her heart beat, her body moved, but she was no longer there. Everything that had once been life had become survival. She wanted to disappear, not out of cowardice, but out of exhaustion. Her mind whispered convincing lies. You don't matter. No one would miss you. It's better to end this. These voices, repeated silently, became her constant companions.
But rock bottom isn't just a place of pain, it's also a brutal mirror. It's where the soul sees itself without masks, where hidden truths emerge, and we understand the impact of our own wounds. Sophia faced her own emptiness, and for the first time saw who she truly was. Someone tired of faking strength, tired of trying to fit into expectations that were never hers. And there, amidst shattered thoughts and distorted memories, something inside her began to cry out for help. Not aloud, but silently. This is the part of the journey where many give up, believing nothing can change.
But it's also the point where transformation begins to blossom, even when it seems impossible. Sophia didn't know it yet, but that void was about to become the space where something new could be born. If any of this resonates with you, let me know in the comments by writing, "That makes sense to me." It was in the deepest silence that something inside Sophia finally stirred. There was no light, no music, no one beside her, just her and the distant sound of her own breathing. And in that absolute emptiness, a voice whispered from within, weak, almost imperceptible, but real. It's not over yet. For a moment, she doubted it. She thought it was just her mind trying to trick her again. But that phrase echoed differently. It wasn't an ordinary thought. It was a reminder of something she had forgotten. The will to live. That was the first crack in the darkness. Small, but enough to let the light through. Sophia realized that, as devastated as she was, there was still something inside her that wanted to keep going, something that hadn't been destroyed by pain. It was like rediscovering an old part of herself, one that believed in the possibility of starting over. It's curious how sometimes a single moment of lucidity is enough to change the direction of an entire journey. But a moment of clarity rarely comes as a miracle. It's born of chaos, exhaustion, and total surrender. It's when the mind no longer has the strength to resist, and the heart decides to speak. Sophia understood, without fully understanding, that she needed to get up. Not because everything was resolved, but because, for the first time, she wanted to try. This decision, however small it may seem, is a turning point in many people's lives. It's the moment when the mindset shifts, and the impossible begins to become merely difficult. In the following days, she still cried, still felt afraid, still wanted to give up. But something had changed. She no longer wanted to disappear. She wanted to find herself again. This subtle shift was what began her true transformation. It was as if her soul, tired of suffering, had decided to breathe again. From that moment of clarity, Sophia began to see that starting over didn't mean erasing the past, but learning to navigate it differently. At first, everything felt strange. Asking for help still stung her pride. Admitting she couldn't handle it alone felt like a defeat. But little by little, she understood that courage isn't about enduring everything in silence. It's about having the humility to say, "I need help." And it was in that recognition that true transformation began. Therapy sessions, which once felt like an obligation, became a safe space. There, she learned to look at herself without judgment, to understand that her wounds didn't define her, but revealed where her life still needed attention. Through tears and silence, she discovered the strength to allow herself to feel. It's curious how healing is rarely a giant leap. It comes in small daily decisions, each time we choose to continue even without having all the answers. Faith also returned, not as something religious, but as an invisible thread reminding her that everything has a purpose, even when it seems meaningless. She began to connect with what she called her inner truth, that quiet voice that had been stifled by fear. And from then on, life began to take on nuances she no longer remembered. A hot coffee tasted better, the morning sun seemed brighter, and she began to see beauty even in ordinary days. Healing isn't a destination, it's a constant journey. Sophia realized that self-discovery wasn't about becoming someone new, but about finding herself again. She understood that every pain had a hidden message that needed to be heard before it could be overcome. And when she began to embrace this, what was once a wound became a learning experience. And what was once fear transformed into quiet strength. If this is making sense to you, type, "That makes sense to me" in the comments. Over time, Sophia began to realize that being reborn didn't mean erasing the pain or pretending everything was resolved. Rather, it meant learning to bear the scars consciously, transforming each wound into a source of strength and understanding. That weight that once crushed her now became a silent reminder that she had survived, that every tear shed and every sleepless night had not been in vain. She was reborn, not because she forgot the pain, but because she learned to transform it into strength, to look at herself with empathy and courage, and to make conscious choices that reflected her new mindset. Sophia's life took on a new texture. The small moments gained intensity. The smell of coffee in the morning, the distant sound of laughter on the street, the feeling of the wind on her face. Everything seemed more alive, not by magic, but because she was finally present, living with attention and purpose. The journey wasn't over. The challenges remained, but she now faced them differently, with clarity about her decisions and the impact each choice had on her own transformation. Each step was a revelation, a glimpse into her own life that had previously remained hidden, and which could now be seen with courage and authenticity. Sophia's rebirth shows us that true transformation isn't external, it's internal. It's not about changing who we are to please others or fit into certain patterns, but about discovering the strength that already existed within us, recognizing our vulnerabilities as tools for growth, and embracing the entire journey with its pains, decisions, and revelations. It is in this process that life finds meaning, and that each day, however small, carries the silent impact of real and lasting evolution. If you feel like you're on this path, I invite you to share in the comments. I'm on this journey too. Sophia finally found a way to transform her experience into something that could touch others. It wasn't a ready-made lesson or a magic formula. It was simply the truth she discovered after so many nights of silence and so many difficult decisions. She wanted anyone experiencing the same feeling of emptiness to know that they weren't alone, that every wound she carried could become a source of strength and learning. And so she began sharing her voice, unafraid to appear vulnerable, showing that authenticity has a profound and silent impact, capable of connecting people in unexpected ways. She said calmly and firmly, "If you're in the dark right now, I know what it's like, but believe me, there is light even when you can't see it." simple words, yet filled with experience, revelation, and courage. It was as if each sentence touched the depths of the listener's mind, awakening tiny sparks of hope. Sophia knew that true transformation didn't happen all at once, but with each conscious decision, with each step we choose to take, even when the pain still lingers. Her message shows us something essential about the mindset needed to face internal challenges. It's not about avoiding pain or faking strength, but about understanding the impact that each choice, each inward look, has on one's own journey. It's about recognizing that scars carry revelations, that moments of weakness reveal hidden truths, and that the process of rebuilding is continuous, silent, and at the same time, extremely powerful. Sophia reminds us that every small step, every decision to continue, has a profound effect that ripples throughout our lives. When Sophia looked back, she could see each step of her journey with a clarity that previously seemed impossible. Every fall, every night without answers, every decision to continue despite her own weakness had shaped not only who she was, but also how she saw life. And that's precisely where the power of reflection lies. It shows us that the depths of our minds hold valuable revelations, often hidden behind pain, but capable of generating real transformation when we are able to face them. Perhaps rock bottom isn't the end, but the starting point for a new beginning. Thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. If this story touched you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. And remember, if you are struggling, it is a sign of strength to reach out. There are resources and people who can help. Take care of yourself. Have you ever felt like you were just going through the motions, waiting for the world outside to change so you could finally feel better? We often look for external solutions, hoping that one day life will become easier or people will become kinder. But what if the real key to transformation isn't out there but deep within you? Today, we're going to explore this powerful idea through the story of a woman named Sophia. Her journey will show us that true rebirth doesn't depend on what happens to us, but on the decisions we make inside. It's about a silent, profound shift that can change everything. Let's start by looking back at our own lives. Think about a challenge you faced. It's easy to focus on the pain or the difficulty, but let's go deeper. Reflecting on our struggles isn't just about remembering what happened. It's about understanding the impact of every single choice we made along the way. It's about recognizing how our mindset, in that moment of crisis, shaped the path that followed. Life is built on these subtle choices, these quiet moments that seem small but carry enormous weight. Sophia learned this the hard way. She realized that accepting her pain, acknowledging her scars, and understanding her own limits wasn't a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it was an act of incredible courage and emotional intelligence. It was this very awareness that unlocked her ability to transform. Every negative experience, every wound that felt impossible to heal, slowly became an opportunity for her to grow. Her mindset began to shift. The impact of her own actions became clearer. Suddenly, the world, which had seemed so rigid and unforgiving, started to reveal beautiful nuances that were always there, just hidden from her view. Sophia's journey teaches us that even in our darkest moments, there are essential lessons waiting to be learned. Every sincere reflection we undertake is like building a bridge to more conscious decisions and a more fulfilling life. She looked deep within herself and had a powerful realization. Her rebirth wasn't going to come from a change in her external circumstances. It wasn't about the world suddenly becoming a kinder place or life offering fewer challenges. It was about her deciding, from the very core of her being, that she wanted to live differently. Each conscious decision she made, each moment of quiet courage, each reflection on her own choices, all of these began to sculpt a new version of herself. She discovered a fundamental truth. True transformation happens when we give ourselves permission to change internally. It's when we finally understand that the power to rewrite our story has been in our hands all along, even when we felt buried by adversity. This is where the real work begins, and I want to delve even deeper into this.
because what Sophia understood reveals something essential about overcoming our struggles.
Changing from within doesn't mean you have to forget the past or pretend the pain never existed. That's not realistic. Instead, it's about transmuting those experiences into strength, into awareness, and into wisdom. It's about finding the hidden truth within each obstacle. It's about understanding the ripple effect of the decisions we make. It's about bravely exploring the hidden depths of our own minds, because that's where the most important revelations are often waiting for us. Each step in this internal change is silent, yet incredibly powerful. It slowly begins to alter how we feel, how we act, and how we connect with the world around us. When someone learns to be reborn from within, the small everyday things start to take on a new, profound meaning. A simple glance in the mirror is no longer a moment of judgment, but of recognition. A conversation becomes a genuine connection. A simple act of self-care becomes a powerful statement of self-worth. Everything starts to reflect a new mindset of transformation, presence, and authenticity. Sophia learned to observe her own journey without rushing it. She learned to accept her vulnerabilities not as flaws, but as part of her story. And she began to celebrate every small achievement, no matter how insignificant it seemed. It's in this gentle, patient process that life proves to be truly generous, revealing shades of hope that were there all along, just waiting for us to notice. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to listen to Sophia's story, and more importantly, to reflect on your own. The connection we've built here is special, and that's why I want to invite you to leave a comment below. Something simple like, "I'm with you to the end," or "This message was for me." It's a beautiful way for us to feel that connection, to see that we're not alone on this path of transformation. And if this conversation resonated with you, please give this video a like. It means so much to know that this message is reaching people who are ready to reconnect with themselves and find strength in their challenges. To continue this journey of reflection, there's another video right here that complements what we've talked about today. Click on it and stay with me, because it has more insights and stories that can inspire your own path. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the stories, discoveries, and reflections that can help guide you. Together, step by step, we'll keep discovering how to turn pain into power and small moments into magnificent rebirths. Thank you for being here.